who is in the committee, and also what are the next steps that we're going to be taking. So in brief, we began this process in June after the REPCO 7 decision. We have met 5 times, and you can see in bold is the time when the administrative court processes took place. That includes the extra AYYE board meeting to authorize the chair and also the legal counsel to reply. Just a summary of the administrative court complaint. An individual student has filed an appeal against the decision of AYY's representative council to the Helsinki Administrative Court, which consisted of 2 parts: immediate ban on the execution of the scholarship grants, which means stopping us from distributing the grants, and then an appeal against the decision itself. So in its defense, AYYE claimed that the Helsinki Administrative Court should dismiss the student's appeal as it is inadmissible, and also if the court proceeds to investigate, then it should reject the appeal. So far, we have not heard anything from the court. Even on schedules, the court has been on leave. In particular, we have not heard any information on the ban of executing the grants, and the concrete distribution is still waiting on that result. So with this in mind, AYYE board will decide on distributing the grants to technical students later on this week, but options for distributing the grants for business and art students are still being explored at this stage. So just an overview of the decisions. So we had 203 applications, 134 from non-EU EAA countries, 41 Finnish applicants, and 28 other EU EAA countries. 52 from the School of Arts, 57 from the School of Biz, and 93 from the technical schools, and a special 1 applicant from outside of Aalto University. So the decisions, 33 applicants were granted the scholarship or awarded the grant, 71 were awarded the grant conditionally, and about 29,000 euros in the first grants, 62,000 for the conditional grants, and 99 applicants were denied the grant. So there's some fine print there about the conditional grants. So they were conditionally awarded provided they gave one, they proved, for example, one unequivocal document such as proof of studies in the fall, or a specific document that we've requested from them. So the awarded applicants a bit more, 101 awarded in total, which amounted to 92,043 euros 76 cents. You can see the distribution there of the countries. More importantly, I'd like to focus on the schools. So 35 from the School of Arts, or 31,000, 25 from the School of Biz, or 22,000 euros, and 44 tech applicants amounting to 38,000 euros roughly. So the committee was made up of Kaisela and Apurva, appointed by REPCO, myself, Rosa, who's joined us I think in the stream, and there were 2 other committee members that were there for advisory capacity, Samu Nurmi and Saila Rapumaki. We had 5 meetings, 2 in July and 3 in August. So the process, decision on whether or not an applicant was awarded the grant was assessed case by case, and we focused on a needs-based criteria as set out by REPCO and the board. And if a voting member was able to identify an applicant, they were disqualified from deciding on that particular case. Let's say the anonymized data was sufficient to recognize them, that would mean the remaining committee members were able to vote. And all decisions were decided to be unanimously voted, so no one person could be in disagreement. And just to summarize what's next, so the Helsinki Administrative Court proceedings, we are waiting if we need to provide any further documentation, and we are waiting for their feedback. The board will decide on the detailed criteria and decisions to award tech students as soon as possible this Friday, and board will discuss awarding the remaining applicants in relation to the administrative court proceedings. I think that's it. Thank you.
Any questions or comments?
So my question is about the tech grants. Are all of the 44 persons covered by the scholarship fund by Onni ja Niina Tarjanne, or what is the division of the money?
Yep, I believe they're totally covered because they are technical students, and I'm not too sure of the details of the fund itself.
Yeah.
I am to believe that they are.
Yeah, I was just wondering if there's enough money in the fund to cover the whole sum
That's
for the tech students.
a good question. We will review that. Yeah. That one.
Filmavoitti. Ja mä olin just sanomassa sitä, että, tai ajattelin sanomassa, että tästä tekniikka-alan rahastostahan voidaan jakaa siis about 20 000 euroa. Et, toivottavasti tämä riittää siihen hommaan. So we can only about 20 to 40 k euros from the technical grant.
Sorry,
We can only give out about that much.
what was the amount? Sorry, I
20
missed.
to 40 k.
20 to 40k. Okay. Where are we at? Yeah. Well, we look to be inside that space. Yeah.
Yeah, so to clear up all the confusion, so yeah, all of the tech students will be covered by the fund.
Onko vielä kysymyksiä tai kommentteja?
Thank you. We were wondering about the decision to not go forth with the AYYE sponsored grants, even if there was not a ban decision by the court, so they did not issue a ban on the execution. Am I right? But you decided not to go forward with the grants from the previous.
If I understood your question correctly, we have actually not received a decision
Yeah.
from the court, and so we have no information about how the court will proceed with the complaint, and if they will uphold the complaint or not, and that's the situation. And yeah, we are.
Yeah, but the question was more like legally. Did you have to stop, or could you have gone forth with since you had the support of the REPCO on this matter, and then have acted in good faith that you could have gone forward with this? So why did the board decide not to go forward with the grants, or was it a legal have to?
At this stage, I think the board has decided to wait a response from the court. I think the soonest we may hear from the court is September regarding the first point, which was distributing the grants. But we are still discussing what to do there, and there is nothing, I think, stopping us from practically distributing the grants, but we have to remember that if the court does fall on the side of the complaint, we have to try and recover those grants somehow, and that may put us in a position of risk, so we're evaluating our risk position and considering all options and trying to collect as much information before we make a decision. Thank you.
This is just a simple clarification thing, but I think it would be good if, Imran, you could clarify whether, this delay, because we were in the committee throughout this summer period and this decision came, did that affect how we went through the applications? Because I think that was a discussion point brought about. So did the influence of the court decision have any influence on how we made our decisions?
Oh, not at all. Our decisions were independent of the court complaint. We proceeded as if there was no complaint, and with the complaint in mind, what's a bit problematic is the urgency of applicants' need for the grant itself, and I think that's added a bit of stress to the committee, and I think everybody involved, and I'm sure in RepCo, and yeah, but it in no way affected our decision-making process, and we were as objective as we could be.
Onko vielä kysymyksiä tai kommentteja? Näyttää siltä, että ei ole. So thank you, Imran.
Thank you very much.
Okei, edustajista päättyneet ja tiedot toimenpiteistä.
let's continue the meeting at 18:21. We also received our interpretation at this stage, so hurrah. Thank you for the interpreter. Moving on to item 9, preliminary discussion on the floor plan and budget of the Student Centre, with Johnson presenting. Please.
Is this any better? Great. Okay. So, hi everyone. Another chapter of Student Center news as well as discussion today. So, topics, as I mentioned, we'll do news. We'll start off with just a couple of have a preliminary discussion. What we'll do is we'll do news, and then I'll take questions on just the news. And then we'll talk about the spatial program and budget. Me and Marianne will present the topics, and then we'll go through, and then we'll do questions, and then we'll go through the 3 questions that we have for discussion. So let's start with news. Schedule is one item. We have pushed the schedule back just a couple of months. So now the decision for REPCO, the final decision on the project plan, is going to have preparation in January and then a decision in February. So that's about 3 or 4 months later. As you can see, those little stars, that's the prep and decision for not just AYY but also TF and KY. So as mentioned, that's the project plan decision, the investment decision in January and February. That kind of commits us to the project. We also have the spatial program and budget conversations going on this month with a decision next month. And I'm sure you're going to ask me, so I'll tell you now what this means for the final date of the completion of the project, as it pushes it just a couple of months to February of 2024. So just a couple of months later then. Another topic is the ownership structure. You may mentioning this on and off throughout the year. We are trying to figure out between the different parties how the project should be owned. It has a large effect on many issues. It might affect the building, it might affect the administration, maintenance, everything like that. We've already ordered a report from a lawyer, from a legal firm, and a diversion which looks at one real estate company option versus a multiple real estate company option. And we're going to, AYYE is going to review it with our experts and develop opinions based on that study. And this has been a bit of a pain point, so we're going to continue to keep you guys updated as the conversation carries on between the different parties. This could be a point of disagreement. We'll have to find out. Another exciting topic is sustainability. We have 3 offers from sustainability consultants, and we'll be deciding on a consultant probably this week. We are going to be setting our goal for sustainability. The only thing the parties have really established is we want some kind of sustainability goal, but what exactly that will be, that's partly why we've hired we'll keep you guys informed on how to participate in that work. So I'm going to pass this off to Marianne, and her and I will kind of tag team this, introducing you guys to the materials.
Joo, ja jos noista kuulumisista on jotain kysyttävää, voi kysyä myös suomeksi. Mä tiedän, että siellä on esimerkiksi saattaa olla jotain termejä, mitä ei
There must be
välttämättä
terms that you don't know in English, or if you're not familiar with the terms, you may ask anything in Finnish or English.
Jos kuulumisista ei ole mitään, niin
If
mennään
nothing on news to the topic at hand, which is the preliminary discussion. This is our spatial program. Materials have been sent to you beforehand. Regrettably, we had some problems to have them reach you, but hopefully you've had time to gain them and peruse them. And today we have a very tight schedule in the sense that we will go through the material, and we'll try to focus on the discussion itself and keep in mind the main goal today, which is that we would prepare a decision proposal for next meeting for you. So currently we have 3 templates by the board. Then we've had requests from groups. Hopefully we'll get them soon. The board would like to know, do you agree regarding the templates? If not, then hopefully we will hear counter proposals on how can we alter the templates, or do we need to do additions or removals, so that next time we'd have the best possible templates up for voting, that we could get this as good as it can get for AYYE. So here's the bullet points on the subject. So the target is to have a project that AYYE can have an acceptable project. So, to start off, we have the longer material have been sent, so a summary. We had 2 spatial programs. One is the full program, which includes pretty much everything: common spaces, joint spaces, office spaces, volunteer spaces. Option 2 is the reduced program. And why do we have these? Is just that we can discuss more easily, and we can end up in a solution which is somewhere in between these 2 proposals. So we're not discussing a broad scope. So we tried to get an option which is clearly cut down and reduced, so it can be seen on the budget clearly, but which could still be acceptable. So here we have a version like that. Then we are doing the budget comparison between the 2 versions and drafts, and there's also other costs incurred than just construction. So we've aimed to include all costs, ongoing and preliminary. So the construction costs, then we also have the value-added tax. We also have the fact that how much purchasing the land / renting the land would cost, what does maintenance cost. Then we also have keto, if we sell it, how much will that bring us money, and which is quite necessary for us to meet the numbers. And also we have the comparison of that if we rent spaces or facilities to third parties, mainly being the university, or not. That kind of scales it quite much. And here we have 2 examples. A question which the interpreter regrettably cannot hear. But it was a good point. This is definitely another good point, but the interpreter cannot hear it. The question was, did you ask about maintenance? Regarding maintenance, this is not the entire maintenance cost, is 2.4 million, but it is comparative to current. It's an increase from the current maintenance costs, so this is a long-term plan that has been calculated, so that how much money do we need to place. Reminding that because we have these microphones, if you have questions, please have them up on the stream, and of course the interpreter can hear them as well. So in this comparison, you can also see that if we have less facilities, it of course affects how large our portion of the rental facilities costs is. So you can see this comparison here as well. Here we have the full program, total budget, incurring construction costs, plot rental costs, and also the mentioned here, all hallways, all technical facilities, etc., which are quite large. And we also have a reserve. And you can see full area in terms of square meters. And this is also that if we have AYYE in the full program. Here we have the AYYE annual budget risk analysis. Kind of a graph to show that these are not absolutes. There is leeway, and there is also an option that does not yet exist, which is dependent pretty much on whether or not we can create a contract, an agreement, and how largely of the spatial program will we actually utilize in terms of rentals to the university. So there's quite a large scope here of possibilities. And of course, we've brought out the Financial Real Estate Committee evaluation on our financial sustainability. And we all talked about, they've given a clear message that if the total is over 10 million on AYY's part, it will be visible in AYY's budget. If it's less than 5, the risk would be very minimal. But we are still in the portion that this kind of building would be possible, but it would not actually fulfill our goals we've set for the project, so we are not presenting this option. And between 5 and 10, we have different risks of, if we have sudden incurred costs, they might affect AYY's other activities. Depends. Then I've opened up several slides regarding facilities. We have our own facilities, we have shared spaces, we have private spaces, and open spaces. Quite a lot of those I've tried to explain to the best of our ability, and what kind of facilities they'll be, what kind of activities will be held there, and who owns them. And then we have a total construction cost slide, which divvies them up by open, semi-open, and private. And then we have these totally private and shared facilities, so we can actually see the comparatives, because this is a shared project, which is a joint project. We can see how these different facilities relate to one another. And here we also had a slight error that we were notified, so we can have the ability to fix the numbers, but in total is about 50-50 for other facilities, but since it's as a shared building, should it be totally AYY's responsibility that this happens? And at this stage, we'll take go through all the questions that have already been presented, and then we may start the discussion. So take all the questions and go through them topic by topic. Can you hear me? On page 37, we have the current spatial program and shares are not evaluated to achieve the goals. Can you open this up a bit? Why? What is this based on? Because there's no explanation for this. Yes, let's do so that we'll go through these questions one by one, and I've tried to get explanations for all the templates on where everything comes from. So this question was presented at the group chairs meeting already. So let's go through these first. So Emily.
Oh no, I just turned it off. It's my fault. Is this good now? Okay, sorry about that. Should I start over or maybe not? So next slide. Yes, so the question that we have asked REPCO is, do you also agree that we should have the full program? Do you support the basic proposal? And I think the next item is the conditions. So Marianne can do this.
Joo, eli tosiaan hallituksen
So,
pohjaesityksenä
the
oli,
template
että
of the
jokainen
board is that
osapuolista
each party
käyttäisi
would use
50%
50%
budjetistaan,
of their
jonka käyttävät
budget
tiloihin, niin sellaisiin
for
tiloihin,
facilities on
jossa
facilities
joko
where
kaikki aaltolaiset voi
either all
vierailla, eli
Aalto
ne on
people can
avoimia
visit,
tiloja,
so they're open spaces,
tai sitten
or
ne on semmoisia tiloja,
they are
jotka
facilities
mahdollistaa
that
niinku
enable
osapuolten suurempaa yhteistyötä.
greater
Eli
cooperation
ovat
between
jaettuja
parties. So are shared
Ja
spaces.
tähän ei lasketa mukaan Aallon
This does not
mahdollista
include
osallisuutta, eli
the
se saattaa
possibility
siis
of
sekoittaa
Aalto,
vaikkaan suuntaan
so
tai
it might
toiseen,
mix
mutta se on
the whole deal, but that's kind of a positive
Että olisi
mix.
AY:n ehto olla
So
mukana
this was
projektissa.
an AYY's borderline condition to be involved in the
Ja
project.
tähän ollaan pyritty nyt
And this has
avaamaan
been
enemmän
something that why
sitä
we've tried
luovaa.
to open up the reasoning for this.
Ollaan käyty hyvin pitkälti
We've
läpi myös
largely
niinku
also
aikaisempien
discussed
medarien
previous
kokouksia,
reps and council
kantoja,
meetings,
materiaalia,
their
puheenvuoroja,
stances, their
äänestyksiä.
speeches, their
Ollaan
votes.
käyty talousjohtokunnan
We've discussed with the Financial
keskusteluja
Real Estate
aiheesta
Committee,
sekä nyt että monilta
also
aikaisemmilta vuosilta. Ja
on
muuten
earlier
meidän
years,
yhteistyötahojen
and all our other
kommentteja.
cooperation partners and
Meillä
their
on
commentary.
kunniavaltuuskunta neuvomassa,
We have the
meillä on
honorary
monia
delegation, we have our own
asiantuntijoita
experts in the
mahdollisimman
organizations on a
laajasti
much broader scope than regularly. An interjection, which is also very important but cannot be heard by the interpreter, but has to do with the meeting technicalities. So, for this item, that how should we wish to go through this item? Does Marianne have the idea that we'll go discussion on the proposal, or should we have the discussion after the group chair people, group discussions?
pohjaesitykset ja perusteet.
The idea is that I present these templates and all the information, so you retain all the informations for the discussions. We'll go through this one item at a time through the group speeches. So the groups have made speeches for this package, as has been requested. I would hope that we go through this whole motion, then we go through the group speeches. So if with this kind of very terraced discussions, we should need to discuss during the discussions. My proposal was that we'll go through the proposal, then the groups, then if we have a discussion, then go through the discussion then. That would be the most clear cut way to proceed on this.
Joo. Eli sit mä jatkan tästä.
So I will continue.
Joo. Tosiaan ollaan pyritty
Yes, we have
mahdollisimman laajasti
aimed to as broadly as
myös siihen, mitä on
possible
keskusteltu aiemmin.
to answer all the questions that have been
Materiaaleihin.
asked before, familiarize ourselves with the material, and at the start of this year we discussed this with our new project leader. We did a lot of work on the fact that we are kind of building the same house with all parties, that we agree with all of the parties and all the project goals.
Kuitenkin ollaan
However,
sitten neuvoteltu
we have
tietysti
negotiated, of
koko
course,
ohjelmasta,
on the spatial
Suomen
program
projektista
and the
tässä
project,
tähän saakka. Mut ollaan jouduttu
but we've
toteamaan nyt
regrettably had to say that despite negotiations we have not reached a situation that would depict the goals that have been set for the entire project.
sekä AY:n omia
Communal
tavoitteita.
goals and AYY's own goals.
Ja nyt, mistä tää esitys on tullut,
And
niin se
what
on
this
hallituksen
proposal is about
mahdollisimman konkreettinen
is the
esitys, jotta
board's
me voitais tavoitetta mitata
most
jollain mittarilla. Ja
clear-cut
se on semmonen, jonka on tarkoitus
proposal
kohdistua nimenomaan
on
kokonaisuuteen,
most of the
ei
meters
semmoiseen
that would be
yksityiskohtakeskusteluun.
targeted at the package as a whole, not the parts.
Jokaisen osapuolen
And it should include all parties and their financial situation and take into account the fact that all parties have their own needs for their own private facilities, and this actually allows for quite a large chunk of them.
nämä molemmat puolet
Also take into note that regarding communality, that we've been discussing this project, the fact that we share spaces and the fact that we will have open communal spaces are involved.
Joten tähän sitten tosiaan on se kysymys.
And here's the project condition, which is that do you support the basic proposal, the template? If not, can it be changed? And then we will have the last question.
There we go. So the last topic is the budget. The board's basic proposal is that we set a maximum price of 8 million for the entire investment. The reason for this is based on conversation we had with the financial directorate. They looked at AYY's financial situation and considered different scenarios for the future, and they finally came to this recommendation of 8 million. And we have considered the risks of the big investment, and we do support the 8 million. I think that's all. So our question to you is whether or not you support this 8 million ceiling.
Then we have another item, which is that if you have anything else, you may of course propose other borderline conditions. Should we have other conditions, or should something be stricken? That's also a possibility. So here is the entire proposal. Then you can start divvying out the group speeches. And at this stage, hopefully, thank you for the proposal and the presentation. At this stage, regarding the group speeches, is that we have a lottery list. So Külterirengas will start, then Vihreämpi Aalto. Hopefully you will have ready-made proposals and speeches which are prepared. If you do not have a speech, you may say so. Now you have received the material beforehand. Have you been requested a concise, short speech? And I hope that when we have the discussion, and we will discuss after these speeches, please listen to what's being said earlier, so you don't need to reiterate arguments which will be articulated in the speeches. Question that Emil has. So we will probably repeat it after Emil asks it. Yes. So the question is that, is this proposal available somewhere that has been presented? Not currently, but if you want it, it can be. Isn't this in the presentation material folder? Yes. So will be sent via email. If there are no other questions regarding the group speeches, thank you to Marianne for your presentation, and the speakers may start. So, starting off, Külterirengas.
Hello all, can you hear me good?
Which will probably be in English.
Külterirengas sees that the reduced spatial program doesn't fulfill the preconditions nor the vision of the student center that we have, while still costing us over 6 million euros. Hence, we support the board's proposal of the full spatial program. We see that the added spaces elevate the program to a level we've been aiming for. Therefore, we also support the board's proposal of the maximum budget, as it naturally allows for the building of this spatial program. Külterirengas values the open discussion and cooperation within the Student Center Working Group. We call for preparation work that includes the voices of all the associated parties in order to find a joint project plan that we can all get on board with. We see the proposed project condition as an artificial measure that doesn't fulfill its initial goal. We do agree with the vision of the student center as a community builder, and we do see that the amount of private space should be minimized where possible. However, we believe that it isn't meaningful to evaluate the millions of euros as they are. We should rather look at the building as a whole and think about the value the spaces bring to the building. The openness and the character of the building are not decided in cost estimates, but in the culture and the spatial programs. Bringing together these three parties requires not only shared spaces, but also those spaces and services that allow all parties to operate on a daily basis. We need to remember that we are not only building a shared student center, but a new long-term home for KY and TF, and the vision of an open building should not override these other preconditions. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, we'll have Greener Aalto party, after which Schisma.
Moikka.
Hello.
Jukari täällä.
Vajukari speaking.
Vihreämmän Aallon mielestä niin.
Greener Aalto thinks that we don't have a strong opinion of the spatial program. We are prepared to accept either. We might have downsized in other means and maybe moved some of our services to other targets, but nothing more about that. We also hope that in facility planning we take into account diversity of gender and avoid unnecessary genderification. Regarding the budget, we have the support and we trust the borderline conditions set by the Financial Real Estate Committee. We do not support the template. It does not include or take into account the group's different modes of work and the targets and means of operation in the facilities. What we've discussed in Takiva is that it will be really hard for TF to actually meet these conditions, which will make the project would be harder. It also means that these facilities would be built only for volunteers when most of these facilities would be AYYE volunteers, and it actually does not support the average Aalto communal spirit and building of that. We want to take note of the fact that this current division into public and private facilities is not black and white, we think. Like say we have restaurant services will be mostly be servicing the regular Aalto member than just a facility space or for a party venue. I also want to think of these would be giving any scorings for these facilities. Thank you. Thank you. Next up, Schisma, followed by Luova. Hello, Schisma. Discussed opinions from one end to the other, and we don't have a generalized opinion or a consensus, so that our members will be voting on the budget and all the other items as individuals. In the discussion within the group, we have some points, at least that this final culture of how the house will be used cannot be counted on the or taken from the budget or the amount of square meters. We are talking about square meters, not of how this house will actually sit and how it will be used. That's it. Thank you. Next up we will have Luova, followed by Oltti. Thank you. Hello, everyone. Item 1, the spatial program. Luova supports the board's template. The facilities presented are exactly why we want a student center If we take a smaller program, we would not get everything we want, even though if it would be more expensive, it will be more according to the original goal, which is a place for everyone. Luova feels that it's very important that if we are committed to building it, we will do it to the goal diligently and also ensure multifunctionality in the future. Conditions. Luova feels that we need to ensure that there are enough public and enough private spaces. Because of the project's nature, these should be done jointly by all parties, not just dictated by one party, and through jointly decided principles. We need to have facilities for the members to use, and also including the central office. Luova feels that 50% is a good starting point for shared facilities. The parties should change private facilities to shared or public facilities. Also, evaluation of public, etc., shared facilities need to be re-evaluated. Let's say that from the restaurant facilities, we might have shared facilities. Item 3, budget. Luova agrees with the Financial Real Estate Committee, and the 8 million is seen as a good number. To ensure that the budget does not inflate too much, we need to be diligent at this stage. And also there's a deficit of, or surplus of 100,000, deficit of 100,000. And we need to ensure that we stay in the 8 million budget framework. Luova is also interested in a smaller budget possibility. Thank you. Next up, Voltti, then ProArte. The Representative Council. These 3 items, Voltti sees as follows. We feel that the larger program is better. The smaller program would not ensure our goals. At this stage, we need to take, in fact, the increase of maintenance costs when compared to Keto and the sustainability issues they bring. The board's template proposal is that at least 50% would be shared spaces, is that we do not see as something that we should pursue. We need to look at the building as a whole and the functionality of the facilities. It is important, however, that all the parties are committed to building this building. It would be, for example, problematic where actually one party's private hang-around spaces would be indeed public. It's very important to take note into all the preconditions and requirements all the parties have. And an 8 million maximum seems very reasonable to us. The budget may fluctuate, which we feel that being diligent is important. We see that the Student Centre project has the chance to succeed, but it requires a lot of work. We do not want AYYE to end up in the Vasa situation where the facility constructions will exceed our sustainability. Thank you. ProArte, and do you have any ProArte here? No. Voga and Kim followed by that. We do not actually have a group speech, but we agree with Kulteri-Rengas. This was very concise. Thank you. Kim and followed by Luja. Special program. Kim starts from the fact that the full program is the best option. The cut program does not include the elements that we require to meet our goals, and AYYE people would not meet. If we go with the cut program, we should rather cancel the project. So we support the board's template. The conditions, TF and KY use more money on joint spaces than Aalto and AYYE. So Chem feels that it's uncouth that they should spend even more money on joint facilities and shared spaces. So it would be imprudent to actually make them pay more. Chem does not support the conditions. Regarding the budget, Chem trusts the board's risk analysis and the fact that 8 million is a sustainable number. The board's proposed sum is supported by the board's. Chem supports the board's template for the budget. Then Luja, followed by Vapaus valita. Luja does not have a group speech, so Vapaus valita, please. Timonen Vapaus valita, and it's kind of a concise. It's very important to take all the risks into account in the budget so that we don't surpass the budget. We have the 8 million. It might increase a bit from that, but this could not go to an Olympic stadiums level situation regarding funds. So you need to be vigilant. You need to take into account different kinds of measures, minimize risks for increased costs, and ensure that, for example, we have the blueprints, that there are not increases that come during construction, etc. It's important that the building is there for everyone, which is nice that we try to include Aalto in the activities. Because I don't have anything else, I'll shut up now. Thank you. So now we've heard from all the groups. If you have other prepared written speeches, it is preferable that these would be sent to the Representative Council email list, which helps our work and helps give us material for the next meeting where we are going to decide on this. Thank you. Very good speeches by all parties. And we'll have good discussions between groups. So this is the item where we discuss things. Do you have any requests for the floor? Or questions? Seems like we have good points made through the Representative Council group speeches. I feel that the board brought in this proposal, they brought good points to the table, especially regarding conditions. So I remind that these have been available for several years. Really, AYYE strategy and things essential to our strategy, we are making this discussion and this kind of a decision, we need to focus that all our goals will be met. Seemingly it was not a question, but a statement. Pip, pip. So this is something I can ask the same question year after year, but about the special program. Earlier I have wished that we would separate these ideas that could be utilized in ARA targets that need not be in the student center. We have project spaces, teamwork spaces, etc. Like we could create in an ARA target. Can we make this kind of separation that what facilities are only available in the student center and what facilities are available that the university offers? So how do these differ from the university facilities if we make these? It hasn't been clear to me on what are the targets that can be created only with the construction of a student center and what partially are something that the university also offers. So I would request some sort of answer to this. Marina may answer. I will comment that these have also been discussed, these issues, but making this kind of division is quite difficult because people have varied opinions on what makes a student center a student center. Some people that the project space is something that could be in an ARA target. Some feel that it's essential and crucial to the student center. And what will bring people there that would not come there otherwise. The same can be said about most of our facilities, that these things are such that they have been discussed, and it's an option. Of course, if we will not meet the budget, we will move some of the targets to ARA targets. Some of the facilities will be built elsewhere. We have information in the background. We have a lot of it. Request for the floor. So regarding this, a question is that, is it still being planned that the student center, next to the student center, we would be building apartments next to the building, and have been looking that maybe those ground level floors could be used for ARA targets facilities regarding group work and projects? Yes, that project is still in existence. It is a separate project because it's AYY's own, but it goes side by side, jointly. And we've also thought of options what we need next to the student center, like storage spaces and things that should not be in the student center. So these kinds of facilities have been thought out that we could be utilized in these housing units. Any other requests for the floor or questions? A matter from Schisma. I was thinking of, I'm very satisfied that we brought this project condition on the table. 50% of participation should be done on joint spaces. I am actually happy that we actually brought a measurement that we actually used to utilize decisions. I was unsatisfied with the result, which is 50% is quite arbitrary as a number when we're thinking about what kind of needs could be seen that TF and KY have. Would it mean that TF and KY would have these needs for their own facilities, that they should, in addition, just build lots and lots and lots of volunteer joint spaces? Should this project be inflated for the fact that these other parties could build enough of their own spaces? This 50% at this stage seems arbitrary and wrong, and I think this is the wrong borderline. I'm satisfied with the direction we are going, but we're not there yet. Thank you. If I may comment here, the board and me as the preparing party feel that should you have any other counter proposals, because these are all quite opinion-based. What is a good measurement, what is not? We don't have a facilities plan, so the spaces of facilities that we share with TF is pretty much hallway spaces. So what can we use to measure what are adequate in terms of joint spaces? This was the board's proposal for a good measurement. If it's not supported, do you have an alternate proposal, or do you feel that this is adequate, if the spatial program is adequate as it is? Several requests have been made. At this stage, I remind is that we have this preliminary discussion for the fact that this would be decided next month, which we hope that the group's opinions came through with the group speeches. So if you have proposals for change, they should be presented as soon as possible so we can actually discuss this issue before the next meeting, or that we are actually have all the proposals on the table for the next meeting. Next I have Nikolai Niemilä. I would like to bring out the point that are these facilities private or public is quite subject for debate. If we are comparing to TF's kitchen to the restaurant for the AYYE service desk. So AYYE service desk is 100% public space. Even though it has the hallway space, they have the back rooms, etc. And at the same way, the TF restaurant has the dining area, and then we have the cashier counter and the back rooms, and the back rooms have no other function than to serve the customer who resides in the public space. If one of us brings significance to an alto, which is it is TF. So if we are looking at the financial side, is that the TF could meet the 50%, it means that they should need to remove their own facilities, 935,000. So they should hand out all of their member spaces or pay 1 million more for joint sales facilities. So I do not feel that this is kind of fair. Yes. Thank you, Emil. My own opinion is that it's kind of weird that TF should build, it's kind of to state that TF should build more. The 50% metric is actually good, but how it has been implemented, how things have been calculated can be questioned. But out of TF's facilities, you might have the borderline conditions, and according to them that we may remove some from joint spaces like the restaurant. And then we have the entirely public facilities, and if you have half of the entirely private spaces, then we have private and public spaces. Of course, we have not altered the budget, and we get to the goal. So you shouldn't say that there's only two options. TF is out of the game, or they will build a shitload more. But we have other options available, and how these have been calculated. How can we recalculate these? So to sum it up, this 50% metric is a nice idea. It does not need to be exactly 50%, it needs to be close to 50%. But you should not state that you need to use 1 million more. Thank you. Colleague from Kultarengas to this question to the board. What do you use? I have this idea that according to the group speeches, I would say that the most prudent use of resources is that this work group that's been preparing this is that they would bring a condition if we wish to bring a condition. It could be agreed by all the groups, and the Representative Council does not actually create a metric. Thank you. That's actually answered half of what I was going to say. Marianne, you asked on what kind of metric could be proposed. This is an expensive building, but it actually does not have that much facilities, and these facility costs fluctuate wildly. So maybe we could get this within the work groups, but we can come up with a sensible solution. Thank you. Another request for the floor have been made. You may raise your hand if needs be. Also a comment, these issues have been discussed in the work group very largely. We have discussed these things, but for us to actually be able to speak with our representative council's voice in the delegations, do you agree is that the direction the board is proposed is good? Should we focus or lean more in the work group? Or this is a good result, is something you feel? This is why we wanted to bring this to the Representative Council, is that we want to hear your stance on what is the good direction and how much more we'll have to lean. Is there a wish that we would make a preliminary voting slip vote? So you will want to hear what the Representative Council feels about this, about the issue. So what Marianne would like to ask is that, is this proposed direction for the Representative Council, is this adequate? Is it seconded, or is it not seconded, or do you have an empty for this one? Is this a question you wish to ask the Representative Council? Yes. So to reiterate and clarify, this is kind of an open-ended question, is that what the proposal was that we opened up the divisions and facilities. Do you feel that this is a good result, or should we go further, or do we need to lean more? Did we need to increase the amount of public or shared spaces and facilities? So if we are voting slip vote, we'll have it up on the board. Could we share, could we divide shared and open spaces, because those two are not the same thing. Shared spaces and open spaces and public spaces are not the same thing. We're talking about only for volunteer spaces / really actually totally public spaces. Can we actually separate these two? That is a good point. We have also made opinions on that. We have 2 questions. Do you feel that there needs to be more shared spaces between parties, and do you feel that there should be more public spaces? Did everybody catch the essence of the questions? And to ensure that this is not about, we've had a lot of discussion and we want, this has been the presented opinion, is that we want more shared and public spaces, but if we just don't want to go through do we need more shared and public spaces? Also hope that the questions support the hypothesis that how can we discuss this between this and the next meeting, if we need to make a decision in the next meeting. We hope that we will get good support for the current mood of the Representative Council, so we can have the last discussions before the decisions. Also, the good points have been made in the group discussions. We also have several requests. Finally, first. Myllykangas-Voltio ask clarifications for the question, is that are you seeking for the answer that these facilities that currently exist are 100% AYYs paid for? And should we change so that we would have TFs and KYs portion of those facilities increase? That AYY would move their own costs to KY and TF? Or does it mean that we want that TF and KY increase the entirety, so that this increased sum would go into shared and spaces? The fact that how to get more shared facilities, we have lots of options, but thinking that the parties do not want to increase the budget at this stage. So we have the question at whether or not you have your own private facilities. We would share it between all the parties. Peter first. Like a discussion that they can skip their speech. Kokous. Do you feel that there should be more shared space in the student center? Is it such that AYYE is not placing more resources, or is that we try to gain KY and TF bring more shared spaces into the mix? Is this the aim of the question? Do we increase the do we increase the budget, or it's kind of open-ended question? It's quite unclear as a question. We have several requests, so all the requests have been made have to do with how the question is placed. So for clarification, we may also look at what are we voting of in this preliminary discussion, and if we feel that we have questions that can be voted on in this, but hopefully we should have two votes. It would be the maximum. Are these well, I hope that if we want votes from the representative councils, we will hope that these votes are well grounded and thought of beforehand. Everybody's clear on what is being voted and discussed. We also have people on the list. And to this, for this question and the clarification, I try to answer several questions with my speech at the same time, which is that this is a challenge that led to this fact that we started to actually propose this 50% condition. We cannot build a specific facilities program with the borderline condition that we have we have these facilities. We will not fit it in the 8 million if we do not seek for solutions. In practical terms, it's like, do you want that TF and KY should increase their monetary sums for shared facilities? And I would take this as a separate question. And then if the answer is no, then we'll definitely need to go through the question of whether or not we actually want to even have a spatial program. And also, regrettably, the addition is that TF, KY and ALDA. I agree partially with the spokesperson is that we need to vote on, do we want to set conditions? It's the first question. Do we actually want conditions? And then after which we can discuss on how can we discuss the conditions if we want conditions. And then we can vote on the package itself. Your clear proposals. Do you want requests for the floor? Emil. Nothing more. Any other requests for the floor for the item? I feel that it is quite clear on what we are voting about, voting on. No hands. The Representative Council agrees, is my depiction. Interpretation of the... I hope that the idea is that we get a general feeling. What is the Representative Council's feeling regarding this preliminary discussion, regarding the spatial programs, borderline conditions? The first question is that, do you feel that there should be more shared spaces? I would like to say that the earlier revelations that this 8 million roof leans heavily on the fact that we need to have KY and TF on board. So it's kind of funny that we found out right now and not in the template. I feel that at this stage most of the discussion has been based on the fact that AYYE has 8.1 million in budget, out of which these are shared facilities, and then there's TF budget of 2 million. I can't remember how much TF is spending, out of which they will spend a portion of open facilities, and out of these chunks everybody would have about 50%. Like Taneli said, that we need to increase the budget actually changes the whole deal a lot. I started this on this first question. I looked at it. What can you actually vote? Because what this looks like, we are voting on the fact of whether or not AYYE wants to build something, but we do not have the funds, so we will force the others to pay more. Everybody wants to build a joint communal space for all the people, but we want to build a facility for AYYE's, and all the people is AYYE's task. On TF's side, TF's budget is kind of up to the top. If TF needs to pay more for shared facilities, and TF has 800 members, and AYYE has 15,000, including the 800 from TF. If TF actually has to pay more, it's something that's away from our money. It's kind of a difficult question. I second the point that all Aalto people, building a house for all Aalto people is AYYE's task, and KY and TF is actually placing more funds on joint shared spaces than AYYE, and they are actually preliminarily thinking of their members because they need new facilities because their facilities will not be serviceable. So this needs to be included in the discussion that KY and TF are actually spending quite a lot of money. Can we expect more from them at this point? And voting on this kind of a vague idea. If there's not a exact percentage like a 50, we do not like a percentage metric of 50. So it gives too much interpretive leeway. Do we want to focus more on shared facilities? How much does it mean in terms of square meters? How much does it mean in terms of money or prepared use? There's quite a lot of vague items. What is shared? What is public? Is it for everyone? Is it just for volunteers? Is it a storage facility? So it's kind of an arbitrary distinction. And then we're voting on an issue which not actually clear-cut at all, which is public, etc. So will it be 50? Will it be 30? Because it's kind of an interpretive discussion. Earlier, with the discussions, we discussed the fact that how to take or interpret TF spaces in terms of student center when we're looking at the fact that what are joint facilities, what are the funds used for them, what not. Talking about TF's restaurants, kitchen, what it'll be used. Looking at all the information regarding the entire building costs, the being 4 million in budget, it says that TF kitchen would take 1.5 million. So its portion of TF's budget is very, very significant. I feel that it would be prudent to look at it from the point of view that what is the portion of TF's kitchen out of 1.5 million is that I think it's actually prudent to discuss that we could see TF's kitchen partially as joint facilities, because it's actually not whether or not it's a facility you can walk into, it is a facility that provides communal use for everyone. That this could actually come as a compromise. So this is actually a sensible option to include in the discussion. When looking at all the portions and their chunks, this KY's portion, it's actually 47%, which is quite close to 50%. So we can actually say that it's close enough. They have focused on that. 3% cannot be a make or break situation. I wouldn't start whipping those guys. They're nice people. More on the goals. On AYY's responsibility is to create facilities for all the people. At that stage, if each party is included in the project where we have this joint vision, it will be a joint building and it will be a place where all other people can come and they have a reason to come to. They are all committed to these goals. Then it just isn't just AYY's responsibility. It's everyone's responsibility. And according to our expert, it feels that it was too much AYY's responsibility. If you do not feel that, then it's another issue entirely. Last requests for the floor are being taken, and we'll have before the vote. It is a condition of all parties that all students need to have a reason to come to the student center, but I do not know how it's visible in terms of money or percentages, who owns what, etc. We should think about function and what's being done in the building. I feel that quite a lot, it's like these AYY's conditions are mixed with the project's conditions. KY and TF do not have any interest to build a house for all AYY people. They could just stay in all their bunkers and be happy there. So it would be more sensible for AYY to build the facilities that AY wants for AYY members and then create all the facilities and see what it ends up as. Or rather than just including TF and KY in AYY's building. This is not just AYY's building. Thank you. Last request for the floor. The previous person says that TF and AYY do not care about communality in Aalto. I would like to reiterate in this discussion that I feel that we are looking at volunteer spaces as private. Most of KY and AYY associations are open to everyone. So they include lots of things that people may participate in if they want. They are very communal, very joint, very open. So looking at the fact that saying that all KY facilities are entirely private is quite a pointed comment. So especially now that we are voting, I would like to reiterate the idea is that we can get the answer to the question of how does the representative council present here feel regarding the template and how they are progressing. What changes need to be made for us to be able to make a decision in the next meeting. We have a request for the floor, but first we have another request. Vendela will probably reiterate. There's a proposal on do we want to vote on whether or not we should look at the percentages.
just wanted to have some clarification regarding the question, because the question in Finnish has KY and TF written into it, whereas the English one doesn't even mention that. So I think the question needs to be stated out fully, because right now I'm very lost what I'm voting on.
These questions are still
Also hope that we will be also voting on the fact that we've been discussed between groups, which is the board's proposal, and make a preliminary vote on what does the Reps Council feel on this proposal. I feel that this is kind of a clear vote, because you definitely have opinions. Olli, you had an idea for this.
Kokeillaan nyt sitten, että saadaanko tästä
Let's see
kiteytystä.
that can we get clarification on this one.
Mä nyt pahoittelen vielä tuota mun edellistä puheenvuoroa. Se ehkä sit aiheutti kuitenkin enemmän sekaannusta kuin sitä mitä se nyt sitten oli tarkoitus aiheuttaa. Eli tää nyt ehkä niinku mihin tää keskustelu tässä nyt nopeasti ajautui, niin ainakin mulle tää just kuvastaa tosi hyvin sitä, kuinka monimutkainen ja vaikea tää opiskelijakeskusprojekti on. Ja niinku sanon yhden haasteen, niin se ei poista sitä, että meillä on niinku 20 muuta haastetta, joita niinku pyritään näillä ratkaisuilla ratkaisemaan. Ehkä niin kuin mä haluaisin nyt sen tässä juuri kiteyttää, että ainoa tapa saada AY:n budjetti vaikka alle 8 miljoonaa, niin ei ole tietenkään se, että KY ja TF osallistuu enemmän. Siinä on tosi monta muuta tapaa, muun muassa mikä toi hallituksen pohjaesitys esitti on se, että esimerkiksi Aallon osuusantoi ei vaikuttaisi, eli jos Aalto tulee mukaan, niin se on automaattisesti jaettua tilaa kaikille meidän osapuolille. Eli tässä on moni eri ratkaisuvaihtoehtoja, ja me pyrittiin siellä pohjaesityksellä pääsemään semmoiseen, mikä ratkaisisi mahdollisimman monta ongelmaa yhdessä. Ja meidän yksi isoimpia ongelmia, mitä tässä projektissa pitää meikäläisen näkökulmasta, asiantuntijoiden meidän AY:n kunniavaltuuskunnasta lähtien talousvaliokunnasta lähtien on muun muassa ratkaista se, että meillä ei ole 3 eri taloa, vaan meillä on yksi yhteinen talo. Ja tässä nyt ehkä nyt takerrutaan aika paljon nyt siihen, että niin kun me mietitään jotain yksittäistä jaettua tilaa, kun taas tässä niin hallituksen pohjaesityksessäkin se idea ei ole se, että osallistutaan pelkästään johonkin lisäkustannuksiin, vaan että esimerkiksi avataan tilaa sellaiseksi, että sinne voi tulla jokainen aaltolainen. Sehän tässä on ideana, ja sitä mä toivon, että täällä AY:n edarissa muun muassa tavoiteltaisiin, ei niinku yksittäisen toimijan myöskään, ei mitään pelkästään AY:n toimiston työntekijöiden etu, vaan kaikkien aaltolaisten opiskelijoiden etu. Ja se on ollut ehkä se, mihin me ollaan pyritty täällä meidän pohjaesityksellä. Sen takia siinä on ollut niinku liikkumavaraa, että sitä voidaan useammalla tavalla ratkaista.
We have several solutions available, and this can we actually see we are focusing on. It's hard to answer a simple question or how to create a simple question that would answer all the problems all in one go.
Niin se ehkä se oikeasti se paras kysymys todella on, että pitäisikö siellä opiskelijakeskuksessa olla enemmän kuin tämän tilaohjelman mukaisesti.
Shared facilities than this current spatial program presents. And how it is created, it may come through Aalto, it may come through increased funding, it may come through TF opening up facilities, it may come up through KY opening facilities, creating more money, but this is kind of my proposal. Taking into note the fact that we are trying to solve several problems with one question, which will be solved in the work group of the student center. And that especially, and at this moment or in the future, I do not support that we will go through singular facilities or rooms and how they should be divvied up. Thank you, Olli. It's a good, concise point. But what I would hope that the Representative Council will vote on, what is required for the next meeting, is this simply that we will vote on the preliminary discussion that do we support the current proposal. You know the proposal this current proposal, which in its entirety has been made, that's the baseline. That does the Representative Council feel that they need changes for the proposal, and if you have questions that need to be presented to the Representative Council or the board, these can be asked. I hope that we are not asking vague questions why the Representative Council does not give answers or clear answers. This one question would be asked, and after this we would, through commentary and between meetings, we can bring these proposals for change through proposals. The proposal was that we could have these 3 items that would be voted on separately. No. So the vote is that we either agree with all the points or not agree with them. Second, the opinion if you agree or disagree. The idea, what I depict, is that we can find out what parts should be changed in the proposal, after which we may comment if you have a specific. We have received comments during this discussion as well. Anything to add? Regarding my previous speech, is that this is a good point, but I would also add that should we have more joint spaces for all the people than the current proposal presents? Reminding that when we are voting of broad scope spectrums, this is kind of a direction where we start developing. We are not discussing separate rooms, but we are talking on a broad scope. So they have 3 questions, and we would vote on these 3. If you can get the written format there. To PC dilemma here. Need to move stuff between PCs. The question is to find that we need to find out whether or not the Representative Council agrees or disagrees with these items. After which we may discuss on a specific item what needs to be taken into account for the board. And to interject, I hope that if the groups wish to do so, this speech that has been made by the group can be sent to the email list of the Representative Council. So we will start forming the question. In the first part, we have been included the points made in the group speeches. This will be the preliminarily official vote. So we have 1, 2, according to the question on the board, and asking on item 2 separately, and then as the third question, this. Do you feel that there should be more open space for people, older people, than in the current spatial program? Clarifying questions. Do any of these options include the mentioned about TF's kitchen and its role? I hope that we do not. Yes, the question was that does any of the questions include TF's kitchen? I feel that at this stage, people should focus on this as into the program as a whole, not separate rooms. We will definitely be able to discuss these facilities separately, but we're talking about the spatial program as a whole, not separate rooms. Thank you. But this has to do with the fact that if we didn't need to vote that AYYE wants, what is the 50%? Does it mean that I would vote for it? That we will actually agree the fact that the 50% would only include the facilities divvied up as joint facilities, or that we agree on 50 and then decide what is shared. If we take into account the kitchen in the 50%, but we cannot do that in the future, it's kind of a contradictory vote at that stage. Because procedurally, this is a difficult issue. But we are discussing this template, this proposal that's been presented to you, and that is which we are voting on. Changing specific facilities or rooms can be discussed further, but we'll focus on the broader scope when these spatial discussions. And to actually move forward with this item, let's not focus on this or that. But on item 2, this is what will be voted on, not what is included in the 50%. Also, clarification and reminder that the groups have wished for things, that this will be included in the proposal as their own specific items. Everybody's clear on what's being voted? The first item which we are voting on, I will hope the vote counters. This is a preliminary vote. If you are in favor of the board's proposal, blue. You do not support the board's proposal, red. I depict that this is quite a unanimous decision. Next question. On this item 2, at least 50% of each party's budget is used for open or shared spaces. So, yes blue, no orange. Empty white, vote now. Quite unanimous. Without vote counters, yes, they also nod. Last question. Do you feel that the student center needs to have more open facilities for older people than the current spatial program? Yes, blue, no orange, white, empty. This is a bit more diverse, lots of empties. But red prevails, or orange prevails. 19 red. The vote concludes. Thank you. This is good, especially to write these two questions there so we can actually get a good direction of whether what the Representative Council wishes to be changed in the proposal. Then we also have the last option to discuss. We also have had, if you have an addition, you can do that. If not, I thank the Reps Council for a good discussion, especially good prepared speeches. Closing item discussions, closing item 9, and moving on to item 10, the preliminary discussion for the Miesten tie 2 project side I would be presenting.
Työjärjestyspuheenvuoro SKTL suosittaa, että tulkkaat vain puoli tuntia putkeen. Olen nyt tulkanut puolitoista tuntia putkeen, joten saataisiinko hiukan pieni tauko?
So for the Representative Council, also the English, the recommendation is that you interpret for 30 minutes. At most I've now done 90, so a short break should be in order. Yes. So continuing with the meeting, it is 8:02. Next up, item 10. Saira, please. Item 10, preliminary discussion on commencing the planning phase of the Viestintä project. There's a lot of text. If you don't see, you can use your own devices. I have sent the Viestintä slides to you. So, the Viestintä second phase, second plan. As you can see in the picture, this kind of J-shaped building, behind of which you can see the existing Viestintä building. AYY's portion would be J left flank, and HOAS would be the other, and Espoo will have something on the right side. Some background on the issue on the Viestintä student apartment project. The first phase concluded in 2019. We have 250 student apartments with a good request for the apartments, and no, in practical terms, no apartments have been empty at all. We have AYYE first building has 131 flats, and we've discussed the second stage regarding the plots. And at this stage, we have some goals on what will be Viestintä 2 will be. The plan is to include 217 apartments, mainly one-room, single-room studios, washrooms, bike storage spaces, rooftop sauna, common room. And what makes this project special is that this is a joint project with HOAS and the city of Espoo. So here we have the joint project manager who is doing the project, and this is a joint project with the design as well. AYYE and HOAS have these student apartments, and Espoo city will have a fire brigade station. But the housing apartment part will be done with the same principles, so that AYYE and HOAS has the option to personalize the apartments in their preferred ways. Some on sustainable development. On AYYE's part, we are looking into things. They have formed kind of a template how to create a building that is sustainable. We are looking at local sources of energy, heat from the ground, ground-based heating. And we also have this other construction program that contains design instructions for upcoming projects. And then, about the plot. This second stage plot will have part of stage 1 plot, and the parking spaces will be divided between these buildings 1 and 2. The Espoo city has proposed that we would rent the plot, but we are discussing possibilities of purchasing the plot because it would be more alluring to us as a possibility. In terms of finance, we will place it in a framework, in an ARA framework. So we can then create on what the rent per square meter can be in an ARA facility, ARA funded building. The cost will be about 20 million. to me sounds quite a lot of money. How it's actually actualized is that in terms of square meters, it'll be pretty much the same as Atlantinkatu now, but we'll get the decision. We'll look at the deciding. We'll do the design now and then get the final decision for construction. At this stage, do you have any questions on the background? Seemingly not. Going to the design phase. So, design phase includes design. So we'll create the organization for design, we'll do the general design, construction, permit design, the competitive tendering, and implementation design. At this stage, we'll also place the cost estimate, and this joint estimate will do a preliminary contract between AYYE and the city of Espoo. So these three parties commit to the project with this agreement and to create the building if the borderline conditions are met. And we get this investment support. And our investment is quite clear. We want to create student housing, so we will get investment support. We'll get it to the framework. Then we'll have the plot reservation / either we'll purchase the plot or rent it. Investments and funding thanks are included into that. Then in the design phase, we'll do the investment decision from ARA, do the competitive tendering for the construction and prepare the construction plans. And how does this decision on initiating design, what does it contain? There is agreement with AYYE and Espoo which bind us to go through with the project if the conditions are met. And as an investment. We also need that for the requests for funding. Also we have the plot reservation / purchase. Will create an organization where we have a project leader, the designers, an environmental consultant, and other experts included in the project team, and also a financial estimate calculation team will be included in the project team. Then agree on the other agreements pertaining to the project. Several contracts or agreements. And then we will create the limited company required by law for the project. And in addition to the invitation to the meeting, we should have the zoning plan for the block. It is kind of a preliminary plan or a broad strokes plan at what it looked like. That has been given to the zoning board for preparation. In this design phase, we'll do and design the final outlook of the building material, the construction materials, housing technicalities, energy production, energy reservations, technical solutions, and of course in sustainable development we'll talk about carbon footprint calculations and also decide on certification. And also have the project cost estimate. A bit more on the design phase decision. What we're making is that AYYE commits to the project that the project will be implemented if the borderline conditions stay within ARA frameworks. ARA will make a cost estimate evaluation on the loan based on that the estimate how the costs of living in the house will form up. This is how ARA ensures that the ARA building will be truly student housing and affordable for students. So about 4.3% of the entire cost will be based around the design process. So according to general costs, we have about 21 million in total costs, with 1.3 incurred for design. That's what the sum is about. Even though we are talking about 1.2, and the design process, you should think of this kind of a spiritual commitment or an actual commitment. So it's not in AYY's interest to just burn $1 million on design and then back out of it, rather than go through with it. Then of risks, what the design phase contains. The ARA loan decision. AYYE has good experience of creating student housing, and that we know what we are doing. But there's a risk that we would not get the interested loan. The second risk would be a joint project. We are designing this together. If we have a party who would withdraw from this process, we'd have to redesign it or think of other things. The risk is quite small as well. But HOAS and the city of Espoo are quite, I can say that they are stable and reliable as cooperation partners. So it's not very probable that they would do things like this. The third has to do with acceptance of the zoning. It's always possible that for some reason the zoning is not approved for a building like this. So it's kind of a timetabling risk, which would mean continuation or a delay in the process. Also on the proposal for decision on what the decision for the next meeting would be. It would be approximately so that the Reps and Council gives AYYE the approval to move to the design phase, give AYY's representative the power of attorney to make the decisions. Also the project leader contract, the design contract and other consultancy contracts, preparation of other contracts, the preliminary plan between AYYE, HOAS and City of Espoo, the zone reservation / purchase, and the other contracts pertaining to the project. These are all things that will start moving forward if we approve of this. The power of attorney to create the housing co-op and to give the power of attorney to relinquish the funds required for the design process. Thank you. That's short, yeah. Lots of stuff, not many pictures. Any questions? Thinking of this carbon footprint and calculations, can we use this information in upcoming projects and to incur less costs if we are comparing pretty similar construction costs in terms of carbon footprint, materials, construction, etc. So if we build a new building, the carbon footprint will be similar. So as a short answer, yes, sounds good. Of course, we gain experience of this like that. We have a few questions here. A question is that how this project as an entirety should be split between HOAS, AYYE and City of Espoo. We're talking about AYYE, about 20 million. How much is that in terms of a slice of the cake? How big will their slices of the cake be? Heikki can maybe answer this better, but just picking out of a hat, similar to all parties. Heikki, is he here? So we have Heikki here as a remote participant. Is Heikki here? Slight delay on the stream, so Heikki will hear a bit soon. Yes, I am here. Can you hear me? Yes, we can hear you. Can you hear me? Yes. He probably cannot hear due to the delay. He will hear the answers very soon. Oh, I was on mute. Sorry. Yes, now you can hear me. Like Kimmo said, these portions, HOAS's and our portion, would be about the same, 20 million from both. We can hear the stream delay now. We had in our group, we had a question that at which stage we can affect on what kind of flats are we getting? That's a good question. First off, I have to open at of AYYE building histories that we haven't created this kind of projects before. We haven't really asked the representative council on opinions of what kind of apartments we are making. We assume that we build apartments that students like. So how to get your points of view across to the Viestintä construction. At the same time, we are creating design instructions for upcoming projects. But I will mention the housing question. Takiva discussed issue and they expressed this opinion that basic studio template for commenting. And we got lots of good feedback on what a studio like that, how do people feel about it? What was the question? Yes. We will try to take your opinions into account, and the options for influencing will come slowly but steadily. Any other questions or requests for the floor? Heikki will wants to comment that the real estate development group is the good proper target for. So Heikki answered through Elina. The other request for the floor. Peppi, please. We want to thank that ecology is environmental issues are something that's being taken into account, but people should focus on environmental living, which is that when people live in these apartments, it also need to be thought out in a manner that it's easy to live in an environmentally friendly manner. We'll have electricity meters, water meters, which encourage saving energy and water, and they encourage so that if you live in an AYYE apartment, it's easy to live in an environmentally friendly way because the borderline conditions are met to support that. Thank you for your consideration. That sounds very smart and something that we need to strive towards. What comes through work groups for the design documents and design instructions, this is something that we could take things like this into account. But this is something that things that AYYE wants for sustainable development and environmentally friendly living. Any other requests for the floor? I picked to interpret that no. Thank you. Closing discussions and moving the proposal. The proposal is that the Council decide on place on record the preliminary discussion on the matter. Decided. Closing item 10, moving... Actually have a 10-minute break at this point as well, due to the interpreter situation, among other things, and you can actually get some air at this point. 10 minutes break. Continuing the meeting at 20:37. Opening item 11. News from the strategy process. Nieminen presenting. Yes, good evening. I will do the strategy process briefing. Nora, the chair of the committee, and the vice chair could not make it. So, what has been done? The operation environment analysis and the other changing powers have been worked and have been processed, and they have been concluded. We have the strategic survey that's been conducted and the results have been analyzed. The board has also, the committee has had meetings annually and discussed AYY's values. In AYY's leadership group, we've had the powers of change and the results of the survey. Also, we've been planning the fall. We have started on discussion on the goals, and on Wednesday we have the office design day, where we'll have the office's values on AYY's values, or office's opinions on them, and the representative council timetable we've been planning for the fall, which will be included on the last slide. And here you can see in our organizational environment we have the recognized forces of change. I won't go through this one by one. We have Johanna Pietiläinen, who's been working on this project. Should have the representative council discussion on this. It should be in October, so you'll get a more deep analysis in October. It's also a good template for the plan of work evaluation and the budget and things like this. So communality, financial position, future knowledge and staff management, technological development, sustainability crisis and environmental sustainability, the power of communications and networking, and diversity and internationality. These are issues that we are looking at in the entire strategy work. How do our goals and strategy answer these challenges that occur? Then, in the strategy survey, this took place at the start of summer. Hopefully you've participated. So it was both to the participants and all other parties. The goal is to find out these parties and their points of view regarding our values that have been written out in our policy papers. And on our policy paper values and direction of the student union goals. And also the subject of where we are looking at these subjects is that are they prudent, are they visible, are they important, and are they clear and concise? Those are the topics. We had the survey open at the start of May, or the half of May to the start of June. These are quite small texts on the slide. This has been sent via email and are also in the Representative Council Facebook group. You should also be participating there. Regrettably, this is only in Finnish. Study year. We asked what the start of that. That was quite a same. Also, we asked your major or your school, university. Everything was pretty much same, but ski was pretty prevalent. Also have a small division regarding how these things divvied out. The honorary delegation and the Financial Real Estate Committee had this separately, so that's why they are showing as 0. 220 from members in terms of replies, 25 from the office, Representative Council 51. So we have AYYE actives, but also we have non-active international students participating in the survey. Here you can see we want to talk about vision and identity and how visible and how knowledgeable and how famous they are. The first graph is that how much do people know about what's our vision? Which was very, very good in that 5 means that it's they are very familiar with AYY's vision. So it's good to see that almost all participants on the survey know our vision. In identity is like how much of an alto person do you feel? Here you can see some divergence. So pretty good results. 4, 5 being and 4 being the most prevalent answer. Most popular answer. About values, we discussed both of our policy paper values, and in addition you had the opportunity to present AYY with possible new values if you don't feel like the ones in the policy paper or something that you feel are your values. They're also in quite small print, and you may peruse them there, but environmental friendliness, sustainability, responsibility, themes like this are very, very, very visible there. Here you are seeing the policy paper values. What do you have in the policy paper? Being a brave trailblazer, creator of communality, defender of equality, and a creator of well-being. You can see the timer there, the hourglass depicts on the eye and the heart depict different values, how current it is, how visible it is, and how important it is. And as you can see, as a trailblazing and developer of well-being are things that seem not as visible. And it sees that trailblazing is seen as a vague thing in terms of most important. What kind of a bold trailblazer? What in what things? How is it visible? And a creator of communality. It's the most current topic, and it is also seen most visibly in AYY's activities, and which is also a very important value. Defender of equality, it was also seen as current and also as almost as visible and important for AYY. In open answers there was a bit of a divergence in that some people felt that defending equality is visible very nicely, and other people felt that it did not. So there was quite a divergence there, but it's also about as current and as important. And as a developer of well-being, which was one of the not so visible values, it says that commentary, especially in terms of volunteer well-being and developing that, should be more on the table. Then going to strategic goals. In these strategic goals, you have all the goals starting from the direction of the student union all the way. When analyzing these results, the members see all the goals are visible, current, and important, but not that they are visible enough. Here's the hot topic of the goals, how current the goals are. Aaltolaisuus being the first one. Housing services, so being aaltolaisuus means that everybody feels like an aalto person, like a member of the community. Housing services means that open and visible housing services. Digitalization means the digitalization of housing services. Campus means regarding in the direction of the student union document, feels like everybody feels like Otaniemi is their campus. Then we have the real estate question, is that our real estate targets are up to date. Studies means to do with your majors, and you can create your own curriculum in a sense that fits your needs. Then we have influence, which is that AYYE influencing is long-term and strenuous and not strenuous, strong. Society means that AYYE members are interested in societal issues and societal influencing. On the framework, they are developing also community and living, which is like your individual and communal living, and also in environmental issues, trailblazing. These blues are a lot, and the upper left-hand blocks is like not at all, and the pink in the very low case is like I don't know. And the goals have been usually deemed as very current. Blue is very, very prudent, and the highest being the need for AYYE real estate. Community framework and environmental issues are seen as most recent and most important right now. And not prudent right now is like housing services and community living are not seen as least prudent. The biggest difference is whether or not an issue is recent and prudent, and how well it's seen. Is it visible? But as you can see, comparing to the last graph, people see that these are more recent than visible. Especially it's seen that housing services have been visible. See that we have open and accessible housing services, digitalization and housing digitalization, and this development regarding curricular targets has seen as visible. And importance of the goals. In general, the goals have been evaluated as very important. Highest of which being the most important goal being real estate and the curricular goal. And the least important has been seen as the societal influencing goal and community living. But as you can see, they are not quite divergent from one another, so small differences. Then on the fall and the timetable, we have next steps. This is kind of a goal. We are discussing strategy in the first meeting in November, and then on the 15th of December we'd have discussion on the decision. After this we will also have an AYYE calendars. We have on the 2nd of September and 6th of October and the 28th of October strategy committee meetings. In addition, we'll have discussions on the board and in the management, and we'll also aim to include our member base during the fall as well in other means. And here as a notification is that number one, the December meeting time has changed, so on the Tuesday 15th instead of 10th. And this is a preliminary. Johanna, who has been working this with me and Nora, is leaving on maternity or parental leave. They are having a child, so happy news. But for us, it of course means that we need resourcing. Most important being that everyone here has the required temerity and strength. So comparing the timetable if needs be, but that's kind of the goal. So much. You have any questions regarding the strategy process at this stage? Any wishes if you want to do something else during the fall or hear from us? We should bring you up to speed with every meeting on terms of where we are going in these strategy things. We are quite large issues coming up. Soon question from Emil, but we are also making strategic decisions when talking about the corporate relations, student media, you should also think of you are creating and making large strategic decisions on what to use resources in the future. Then we have a question from Fielman. Do we have a new upcoming value? Yes. No, we are not that far in the process, but looking at the results and the fact that brave trailblazing has not been seen as a good vision, we'll need to work on our values, on how do we create our ones. These are things that if these are not something we want to build on, we need to think of something else outside the box. Any other issues or requests for the floor for this item? Seems like no. So thank you, Elina. Closing item 11 discussions, and the proposal was that the council decide to place on record the latest on the strategy process. Moving on to item 12, other emerging matters. We also have a motion. We hope that we'll do the motion last and the other proposals and other emerging matters at this stage. Starting with Emil. Fielman Valtti. We and Polly decide like these things could be mentioned, that we feel that in the Representative Council communications and getting material has been problematic. It feels like all the materials for the meeting are coming too late. We hope that all the material in the meeting could be sent well in advance. The office needs to be able to prioritize Representative Council work in a way that the material is on time to the Representative Council members, and all appendixes would also be included in the same place, not in SharePoint or the email or emails separately. Any other emerging matters? Hello? We wanted to tell in terms of Greener Aalto is that at the end of the spring we decided to set up. We have the new Telegram group which is open. We will share our group's needs in terms of things. So it can be found with the hashtag vihreämpi mouho. So you are all welcome to there and discuss things with us. Yes, thank you. Do we have any other emerging matters before the motion? There's 250 days until May Day. Thank you for the information. Any other emerging matters before the motion? Before the motion, I wish to also reiterate an issue at this stage that if an item creates problems for the chairperson, is there an email list that is not working perfectly, which has happened in the few weeks. Now we have an entirely new list. It's not visible to you in any other means that you will actually receive emails after they have been sent, which is awesome, instead of a few hours, which is something that has happened and which is regrettable. The email address is still the same as always. Elina, did you have any other emerging matters? I'd also like to have applause for our interpreter who came from 6 minutes before my... Yes. Start talking about me. Which I will not reiterate this thing. So, wishing for a large applause for the interpreter. Thank you. Any other emerging matters?
preparation for the meeting. I just want to state that it's the first time I'm in this meeting, this kind of meeting, and I wanted to actually prepare well, but I couldn't because of a lot of the material was in Finnish and not available in English, so I couldn't prepare better, just for consideration. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have other emerging matters? If not, then you have the motion here prepared. We'll also have the motion that's been presented by Külteri-Rengas. Thank you to everyone. We've had a stressful summer, we've had a stressful spring, difficult decisions. We've built resilience for the future if we need to have resilience in the future. We've seen that AYYE can make decisions even under scrutiny or during global pandemic. The AYYE is a large community. We have lots of interest and lots of expertise, how this community works, how do things work. We've had lots of excellent speeches on how we should be more open with the material and the timetables, and this is to do with Külteri-Rengas' motion. The decision during the summer was not as fruitful as it should have been. When monitoring all AYYE unofficial and official discussion channels, we've been discussing these corona funds and corona subsistence allowances. The discussion went quite heated and not that nice, and we know that it is a passionate debate subject. We also had some problems with all the cancellations. People are frustrated that there is no official information about things, and then you have gossip instead of building our community. This is why Külteri-Rengas believes that AYYE should focus resources more to proactive communications. And this is why we have a motion. Regrettably, this comes so late. The discussion should be opened through email. We feel that AYYE should focus more resources on proactive communications when making large community-focusing decisions, meaning both openness in preparing communication and other parties. By accepting this motion, the interpreter cannot see the text, it's so small. Hopefully they'll scroll it down. In order from... Well, we've hopefully gotten this motion somewhere. Or I can maybe take 2 steps for... Oh, there we go. Yes. We believe that AYYE needs to allocate more resources to proactively communicate decisions that affect the community. Yes. By accepting this resolution, the Representative Council asks the Board to prepare the actions that foster democracy within the community through communications. These actions could, for example, include getting official agendas, material presented in the meeting, etc., preparing at least a short preliminary statements that may be distributed openly through the AYYE's communication channels, and fixing AYYE inside. So blue is for the motion, red is against the motion, and white is empty. Prepare your slips. Vote is now, which is unanimously for. 1 empty, and everything's for the motion past that. So it's a clear majority. So the motion will be decided on. Thank you for the good presentation of the motion. Excellent work. And 100% full. Good stuff. If there are no other emerging matters, I will move on to closing item 12. Other emerging matters, and moving on to item 13, closing the meeting. I declare the meeting closed at 21:02, 2 minutes past 9 p.m.